So recently I was at my girlfriend's house, and her father is a huge Dostoevsky fan. So we were talking about the brothers Karamazov, and wine was drunk, sugar was eaten, turkey was had. We were going. And at one point I asked him, "Do you believe in God?" I know he does, but I asked him that anyways. He's Catholic. And he said, "The question is not, do I believe in God? The question is, do I believe in the devil?" And that one kind of stopped me. It got me thinking. I'll ask you, do you believe in the devil? I want to talk about the question of evil. So if there was ever a candidate for me for the face of evil, it's this guy, Vladimir Putin. I think he's the platonic form of a dick. So I have these fantasies at night. I don't know if you do this. I lay in bed and I imagine scenarios where, like, my ghost descends into Vladimir Putin's bedroom and I just start attacking him and driving him crazy until he pulls all his troops from Ukraine. Or I have this fantasy where I'll be like floating down and I have a laser pointer, but it's actually a laser gun, and I'll come down and it's a laser that just extends forever, and I just go and I cut all Putin's tanks and all Putin's armored vehicles in half, and I send all the troops home. I really do have these sort of strange, dark fantasies at night. And I think it's my mind, I don't know what it is, descending into itself, going down into the subconscious realm, and trying to make peace with the world before I go to bed, trying to make peace with the question of evil. I have a nearly impossible time imagining how a person can become a world leader who will poison their enemies, political enemies, poison journalists, use horrible methods of torture against political enemies. This guy Putin just doesn't seem to be somebody who is concerned with being a good person. It doesn't seem to be in his realm of thinking. And maybe if you're drawn to a video like this, you're the kind of person who does think about that, who does think about what it is to live a good life. So how do we, as hopefully non-psychopaths, non-sociopaths, people who are trying to lead basically good lives, how do we confront and address and sit with this problem of evil? My teacher Sasaki Roshi used to say, generally speaking, it seems that people call good the things that affirm them and their point of view, and bad the things that negate them and their point of view. And he said, as Zen practitioners, Zen Buddhist monks, y'all need to learn how to hold good and bad and God and the devil in one hand. So he was slightly provocative on the topic. He would say, Roosevelt and Hitler live in one cosmos and had one source. And it's worth pausing and reflecting on this. It's worth thinking about how Putin and Zelensky come from one source. There can't be two sources. So there is not in Zen, as there is in Christianity or a lot of monotheism, this battle, this cosmic, universe-wide battle between good and evil in Zen Buddhism. You don't got that. If me and Putin have the same source, I can't do the thing I used to do when I was a young Catholic boy. I can't say, well, that guy is evil because he committed a mortal sin, so he and I are fundamentally apart or different. He sided with the cosmic bad, and thus there is an unbreachable distance between us, and I'm trying to side with the cosmic good. And it's been hard for me to embrace this idea that the things that are really, really difficult in life are not fundamentally separate from me, that they're part of my content, that they're arising along with me in this one universe. And I do not have the luxury of separating myself from those things. So I can't escape over here to my side, which is the good side. I have to share the cosmos with the crocodiles and the alligators and the saber-toothed tigers and the demons and the Trumps and the Putins and all the other forces of evil on this planet. What does that mean? Like, what do you do with that? So I don't think that this means you have to assume a relativistic or a glib position on ethical matters, on things like war or the Holocaust or slavery or murder or rape. Like, I have never met a Zen Buddhist worth their salt who was glib about suffering. But the approach that Zen Buddhists take, and that I try and take, is to look at these horrifying situations from the perspective not of good and bad, but of suffering. Suffering is neutral. Suffering is real. Suffering is the first noble truth in Buddhism. It's where we start. It's where we start our practice. It's where we start our search. It's where we start to stop, sit down on our cushion, take a breath, get out of our heads, get out of our dualistic point of view, get out of this mindset where we're always saying good, bad, this, that, me, you, and try and begin to make relationship with the reality of the world around us instead of fighting it all the time. And the notions of good and bad are some of the most primal ways that we fight reality. And the fact that many of our religions sacralize and eternalize these notions of good and evil, I find to be a profound spiritual disservice. It's like codifying the fundamental mistake. So in terms of principles, in Zen, we move away from good and evil. Bye-bye, good and evil. It's not like we're ignoring the question, okay? It's not like we're saying there's no truth to that feeling or idea that something is really good or really bad, but we're just turning our attention to the things that we can change and the things that seem to matter and the fundamental crux of the situation, which is the problem of suffering, okay? So if Putin had launched fake rockets that didn't cause anybody any pain, we wouldn't have any problem with what he did, right? The fact is he's causing suffering, and that's why we're saying what he does is evil. So the problem is suffering, and that's the problem that Zen Buddhism addresses. So big things begin to happened for me anyway, when I began to shift my fundamental orientation away from the question of good and bad or the problem of evil towards the problem of suffering. For example, I remember when I was up at the monastery, right? And it was pretty wild up there. Like, we had bears. I had a bear once break into the truck where I bought a bunch of groceries, and it like tore the whole insides of the truck apart and it ate all the food. Bears are like enormous rats when you have to live with them. So we had bears, we had rattlesnakes. Those things were cunning. You'd be walking along and all of a sudden you'd hear tss, and then you'd freeze exactly where you were, because chances were that snake, which you just heard, was right in front of you, looking at you, coiled, saying, dude, I'm going to strike if you step on me. And we had scorpions. Now, we had a policy with scorpions, okay? At the monastery, the policy, not really a policy, it was unspoken, but the unspoken policy was kill the motherfuckers. When you get a scorpion in your bed, kill it, because if you take it, you throw it outside, they're going to find their way back somehow. There were a lot of scorpions up there. They would sting you, and it hurt like a mother. But what are we supposed to do with this real violent way of approaching scorpions? Well, I thought about it once. I had an insight once. I saw this scorpion in my room, and it was like, it had these enormous pinchers for hands, right? Think about these hands that you use to tactile touch the world. And oh, it feels good even just touching myself, right? Touching the world, right? It had claws to pinch and grab, and it was covered in armor, this scorpion, right? It was just covered in armor. And then coming up out of its ass was this enormous stinger that it would attack the world with. It could attack something 40 times bigger than it, you know? So this scorpion was the manifestation of a very different energy than, say, the butterfly, right? We didn't have a policy of killing butterflies at the monastery, but the scorpion was this embodiment of a certain energy that we have to share the universe with, right? We have to share the universe with scorpion energy. So what I'm trying to get at here is Putin is a bit like the scorpion. I don't have to call him evil. I don't think of the scorpion as evil, okay? I mean, the scorpion was put in this universe for reasons I can't understand, but it seems to me to be a very antisocial, asshole-ish little insect. It's very mean. I mean, you see these things like very wicked little creatures. And maybe the universe has to put Putins in our midst too. We like to think that the Putins choose who they are, that they are their own self-creation. I'm not so sure about that. It may just be that we have Putins in our midst and we have to deal with them. Here's why I think this Buddhist focus on suffering instead of evil is important. For me, it removes hatred from the equation. When I'm lying in bed at night and I'm drifting off to sleep and some part of my heart wants to lock the door and let me sleep and rest safely, but there's some other little part, my conscience, that is thinking about these people that are suffering in the Ukraine and the Russian troops as well. We can't imagine that the majority of them love going to throw missiles at their neighbors, right? I'm trying to think about this stuff at night, and then Putin's face flashes before my eyes. There's the strong possibility that I'm going to feel a little bit of hatred for the guy, for what he is, for who he is. And if I assume that he's a being like me that has chosen an evil path for evil intentions, I'm going to hate him. And hatred is a neutron bomb on the inside. It's a pandemic of the soul. It will eat you out. And if you get eaten out inside, then you do bad bad things on the outside. So at that dinner I was talking about that I had with my girlfriend's dad earlier, he was telling me about Putin, and he was relaying Putin's whole backstory. I think because he had read maybe a biography of Putin, and he was saying that as a kid, Putin was a vicious little brat, a bully. He was a bully from a very, very young age. And one imagines maybe this is a guy who got infected with the poison of hatred. Poison of hatred. And hatred is something that spreads. And the vehicle that it spreads through is this notion of evil, that people can be evil. That's the quickest way to spread hatred. Point to someone and say they're evil, and then get a bunch of people to agree with you. It's one day later. My beer is a little heavier. I spent the night contemplating this question of evil and how people can do terrible things to each other with seemingly no guilt. I've asked myself the question, do you believe in the devil? In the existence of a negative force that can inhabit and distort human choice, human mind, human goodness? And to be totally honest, I don't have any more answers to this question today than I had yesterday. My approach is to try and keep my own side of the street clean as best I possibly can. It's not a good idea to look to Vladimir Putin as the essence of evil. It's, for me, far more instructive, wise, and deep to look in myself and see those moments of hatred arise that I'm oftentimes totally blind to. I mean, there'll be moments when I'm on the bus and I'll see someone and I just won't like them. I don't like the cut of their jib. In fact, I briefly hate them. I briefly transform from the beautiful butterfly that I thought I was into that armor-backed, poisonous tail-wielding, claw hands scorpion. I manifest that energy. In the Zen path, you don't look to the outside world for answers. You don't look to blame the outside world for your own problems. You pay attention to your own breath and your own mind and to the arisings of the things within you. And you begin to learn how that mind works. Other people aren't so different from me and you. We're all kind of the same. We all kind of have the same operating software. So whatever it is that I find so repugnant, so terrifying, so infuriating about someone like Vladimir Putin, whatever it is that I hate so much about that guy, I got that same thing inside of me. Keep your own side of the street clean. Do your best to address the problem of suffering. Leave the question of evil to the theologians. Once we start calling things evil, then we have to amass forces of good to destroy those evil things. And now we've got a war. And as Nietzsche said, to paraphrase, be careful that in fighting monsters, you don't become a monster yourself. So I hope this war in Ukraine is over soon. May there be no more wars. People flinging rockets at each other. Is there any more stupid activity? Just forget the fact that it's evil. Is there anything more stupid than that? I talked about the scorpions earlier, but war is like a bunch of scorpions turning on themselves and stinging each other to death. Idiots. Idiots, idiots, idiots. The human world is full of idiots. May we evolve out of our selfish stupidity starting here. Thanks for watching. In the description for this video, there's a link to my Patreon page where I've got a bunch of essays that I'm getting ready to put in a book. And I have got a bunch of blog posts. There's other videos. If you want to support this channel, you can go there. I also have a PayPal donation link in the description for this video. You can support me that way. I offer these videos for free, but I just bought a new microphone, and thanks to Nina Snow for giving me donation for that. It's expensive to make these videos. It's expensive to live. I'm living in Europe, trying to hustle my way here. I'm thinking about Ukraine because it's right next door. So anyways, I'm an American hustling my way through Europe right now. So any help you can give me would be great. See you next week. Take care of yourselves. Ciao. Let's do some final pictures of some cute babies.